I remember on my first trip, the fear of stepping out into Africa, leaving my comfort zone, leaving what I knew, my country, getting into a vehicle and actually driving north, where at that time there wasn't a lot of information around. There wasn't a lot of YouTube stuff. There wasn't a lot of forums you could get information. There was very little. The best information I got was from an overlander that would drive the other way. And I always say that's one of the best things. You'd flash your lights, you'd stop, you'd pull out a map on the bonnet, and you'd share that where he's come from and what his experiences are and where he's got money changed and what workshops you can go to and where you can camp safely. And that was so valuable. It was like you had this gift from the other person, so you had the encouragement to venture into those areas, knowing that you can get help if there's help, and there are some safe, reliable places. I've had some of my best experiences when things have gone wrong, when cars have broken down, when we've broken down. People will step out and help you. There are more people who can fix a car in Africa than you'd want to believe, or in different parts of the world. I've had situations where people have made parts for us, helped us do stuff, put vehicles back together, just because there's that commonality of wanting to support and help. So actually enjoy that experience. I don't actually fear it.
Truth is another one that we are vehement about. Truth, trust and vulnerability, and they all go in the same pot, because the vulnerability and the raw truth is what builds the trust, doesn't it? And fear is a good thing because it keeps you awake and alert. But what do you do with the fear? When you unravel, how do you unravel? In sharing the fears, you become more aware of each other so you can support each other when those untowards happen. Because there are things that Paul is great at that I'm not, but he knows where to support me. I know where the areas where Paul needs more support, and that's what I'm good at. But that's how the teamwork plays out. It's about ironing out the creases before you get on the road. It's not about what happens on the road, it's about how you resolve it. And that's the kind of people preparation you can do before you head out.
There's a great example of when you get in a car and one of you is better at driving. Okay, and it's a very contentious issue at times, and between couples can be really difficult because one is maybe more experienced at driving and the other one not. So how important is it that you both drive is really critical. What's more important is for the passenger to be honest enough to say, I don't feel safe if you're driving in a particular way. Now that can be something small that you bury and you put away. But believe me, over weeks and sometimes months of travel, it just festers. It's like a sore. It gets worse and worse. And every time that person gets behind the wheel, you feel a bit unsafe. So when we talk about that honesty, it's so critical to have that honest conversation, to actually agree up front and say, if you're not safe and I'm driving, you tell me. If you feel I'm driving too fast or what, share with me.
Or you're sleepy, or you're tired. Sleepy, yeah. Own it, say it.
Yeah, and swap out. One of the things that I like to do, certainly myself, and I encourage people to do, is to do daily checks. And why? Because when you do a daily check, you're going to pick up something that could be a potential problem long before it becomes a reality of causing a breakdown. And it might be a small leak, it might be something you notice. There's a set of sequence checks you can do. Now that takes away about 80% of the probable breakdowns that people have. One, to prepare the car properly, to make sure that you've got it as well prepared as you can. That doesn't mean build a new car. It means understand the weak points, change the parts that are problematic or worn out, and you're building back in some reliability. When you do that, the amount of breakdowns become very small, and invariably you can deal with them at a workshop because you've already picked a problem up. You haven't driven it till it's broken down. Getting lost is something that we could all fear. And today we've got GPS, we've got maps, but we all rely too often on a GPS. And sometimes when you're driving and traveling, you forget to take in around you what's there. Where's the sun? Which road direction am I taking? Stop and ask. How often are we so reluctant to stop and ask? Another time I was driving up into Tanzania, into northern Kenya. And Lake Turkana is quite a remote lake before you go into Ethiopia. There's one really bad road you can go through to the lake. It's a spectacular lake. And when we left that campsite in the morning, it was a case of we had a verbal set of directions to get across there was a salt pan, and then we wanted to go further north to get back to make it safe on a safe road. And we'd driven for about 4 hours and came back into a little village when the young kid ran up to the car and said, "Welcome back." Now when those words sunk in, and I suddenly realized the enormity of what he said, and to my horror, that for 4 hours, using up fuel, the most precious resource, totally lost, and we'd done a big circle in the desert. Fortunately, come back to somewhere where we could replot our start. Now it meant that we didn't have enough fuel to get to the high road, and we had to cross a salt pan. So 2 tracks on a salt pan, and you're driving on a salt pan, knowing that as long as we stay on the tracks, it's probably going to be safe until you encounter 2 camels standing on the tracks. And then my gut was saying to me, you just push the camels off the road. My head was saying to me, just drive around. Why you want to push these poor animals off the road? You know, when you listen to your gut and you tune in, it is probably one of the biggest lessons I learned in my life, when I listened to my gut and I nudged forward. And as these camels stepped off that 2 strips of hardened salt pan track, they went up to their knees in mud. And that could have been us, and we would absolutely have been stranded, because there's no other vehicle coming past on that route, probably for a long, long time. No sat phone, no GPS. So, you know, it's good to take risks. And when you've got a sat phone and a GPS and you've got all that, you've got help. You can get help. And these days, so many of the routes have been traveled, documented, and a lot of good information about them. That is less of the unknown, but it's more of you finding your unknown. And that's what's so exciting.
You can have a kind of a plan, a general plan, but let the detour allow it to be something that is going to take you somewhere interesting. Instead of lost, go with curiosity. In the rush of time, you could miss out on something even more amazing than getting to the destination. And rushing kills the essence of overlanding. Overlanding is about the experience, and experiences can't be rushed. Otherwise, it's a checklist and a to-do list, and we've all got enough of those back home.
It is about having fun. An expedition is not a holiday. It's actually a very different mindset, because the reason it's not a holiday is it changes every day. Every day you're moving, constantly changing. If I want a holiday, I go to a beach cottage. Every day I get up, it's the same. That's my holiday. When I'm on expedition, I'm inviting that change. I'm inviting those new experiences. And when I've planned around accepting that change is going to be part of what we enjoy, you're going to have the fun, you're going to have the time out. And to take the time out is really important. You know, we often plan trips for a set length of time, knowing what we want to do. The biggest mistake people make is they try and do that much in that much time. And that takes the fun out of it. It puts stress in, it runs risks, it puts fear back in. So what are we doing there that's wrong, that we could do much better if we approach it in another way?
And I think to add to that is, a lot of the fear can be alleviated not only in the preparation, but that fun aspect is, why are we actually doing this trip? Remember always the why, and that will keep you on track. Thank you so much for following us on our channel, for listening to yet another episode, and please help us by supporting us on Patreon. Follow the link below. We'd love to share more of what we have to offer.